This podcast is intended for a mature audience. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome back to Legend of the Bones. Following in the footsteps of giants, Legend of the Bones is a chimera. A mix of old-school tabletop RPG and dark fantasy storytelling. As its name might suggest, in Legend of the Bones the dice rule. There'll be no rerolls, no fudging the dice, no metacurrency. The roll of the bones will determine the character's destiny, and no one will be spared their fate. None shall escape the destiny of bone. Last time on Legend of the Bones. The focus shifted back to Canute and the Northmen's search for Beric's father, Jarl Einar. Canute and the crew of the Uvadraka left Penglanow to sail across the open ocean to reach the realm of Llanrhys, where Einar was reported to be, a journey of some 200 miles. Fine weather on the first day brought nearly perfect sailing conditions. However, the wind changed overnight, bringing with it a violent storm. Canute had no choice but to steer the Uvadraka away from the oncoming tempest to ride the storm. Over many hours the storm raged, yet still the Uvadraka weathered its onslaught, until finally the wind died down and the sea became calm once more. As the crew celebrated their survival, Canute and Ravin discerned that they had been blown many hundreds of miles off course. But that would prove to be the least of their concerns, for at that moment the ship was attacked by a kraken, a monstrous giant squid. A brief but intense battle ensued. Arn was snatched up by one of the kraken's tentacles, and several of the crew were killed and eaten by the monster. But after a number of its suckered arms were severed, the kraken fled, leaving Canute to watch on with horror as Arn was dragged away to a watery grave. But now we shall return to the main party as they stand at the threshold of a hidden door and stairs descending further into the dark vault of Penmalkin. Chapter 65 Part 1 Day 62 Morning. Party status: Beric, 53 out of 53 hit points. Lena, 34 out of 34 hit points. Valen, 21 out of 21 hit points. Talion, 32 out of 32 hit points. Eadith, 14 out of 14 hit points. Spells available: Valen has memorized Charm Animal, Push, Shield, Soothe, Revive, Clairvoyance, Ignite, and Dragon's Breath. Talion has memorized Resolve, Poetic Prose, Pitch, Imbue, and Lullaby. Eadith has memorized Flame, Sleep, Camouflage, and Knock. Lena can pray for 2 first-level miracles, 2 second-level miracles, 2 third-level miracles, 1 fourth-level miracle, and 1 fifth-level miracle. Valen's shadow seemed to advance a little unnaturally before him, dancing and shifting on the rough limestone walls as the companions descended the narrow steps of the tunnel. The air was cool yet dry, carrying a faint breeze that caressed his skin. It drifted upward from the black below, drawn towards the open doorway that they had left behind. After the mage had opened the magically sealed door by placing the warden's torques at each point of the pentacle, he had recovered the bands, and the companions had placed them back around their necks. They had seen what had happened to the 5th warden firsthand, and none of them desired the same fate. Valen's unease, however, had been growing ever since his feet touched the first step. It was more than the trepidation caused by the vault's dark purpose. It was though something in the depths had reached up and hooked itself into his mind. A pull, subtle but insistent, drawing him onward. Yet the compulsion filled him with a crawling dread, like walking willingly into the wolf's den. They descended for another 50 or so steps before Beric halted. The sudden pause sparked a flicker of irrational impatience in Valen's chest.
"I can hear something,"
Beric relayed in a low voice as he peered into the gloom.
"And I can see an archway at the end of the stairs."
Sure enough, as they strained to listen, sound floated up. Not footsteps, not breathing, but whispers. At first they were like a murmur at the edge of hearing, indistinct and everywhere at once. An unspoken understanding passed between them. Anyone or anything beyond would surely see them as they descended the final few steps.
"We should proceed with less light,"
Valen offered firmly. He retrieved a linen bandage from his pack and wrapped it about the moonstone. The gemstone's light dimmed, plunging the companions into near dark. Step by careful step, they moved forward, the cacophony thickening until it became a writhing chorus that crowded the ear. And by the time they reached the open archway at the bottom of the stairs, the sound was deafening. Yet, there was no crowd. Valen unwrapped the moonstone, allowing its pale light to spill into the chamber beyond. They stepped into a perfect circle of stone, perhaps 50 feet across. From floor to unseen ceiling was carved into shelves, and every shelf was filled with thousands upon thousands of scrolls and books bound in stitched skin. The dry air reeked faintly of dust and something else, like parchment left to decay in the dark for centuries. From above, a lone chandelier floated in shadow, its candles long since melted away. 2 other archways stood open to either side, perfectly opposite each other, and exiting to stairs leading up. While directly across from where they stood loomed a heavy iron-banded door. In the centre of the chamber stood a reading lectern, upon which a hefty tome lay open. And there, hunched upon the cold flagstones beside it, sat a single figure. Even in the dim, uncanny light, the companions could see it was an old woman. Her skin was ghostly pale, her cheeks hollow. Her white hair, once neatly coiled, now hung half loose around her face, like an unravelled thread. Beside her, a lantern, its flame extinguished, rested upon the ground, along with a leather satchel.
"Demelza!"
Eadith's cry rang out, echoing across the chamber, and the whispers died instantly. This chamber, once a library of ancient knowledge, has been subverted by Mordgren, the god of forbidden knowledge and darkness. Mordgren is the lord of hell and chief among the 5 dark gods, and it is his hellstone, the Eye of Mordgren, that Valen's former master Amos was the keeper. Of course, since Amos's death, Valen has become the Eye of Mordgren's keeper, despite it not being in his possession. Regardless, such is the power of the hellstones that they bind themselves to the souls of their keepers, and this will undoubtedly have implications for our mage. Until recently, each hellstone had an unbroken line of keepers, passed from master to apprentice for 1,000 years. Reynard of Harburg changed that when he murdered the keepers of the Eye of Varlak and the Eye of Felig. I don't yet know what this means, but I'm sure it will become clear in time. Now in this library, among the countless manuscripts and tomes, is the Taint of Mordgren, documents that hold secret and forbidden knowledge. They are the key to dark magic, power and wealth. But not only that, there is the Tome of Woe, Mordgun's record of every shameful thought, every vice, and every sin committed by every person to have ever lived. The book which stands open on the lectern is this tome, and was the source of the whispers the companions heard earlier. Not only that, while it remains open, for each turn spent in the library, the characters must make a successful save versus spell, else their mind is flooded by whispers of their past sins, regrets and failures, causing them to slump to the floor in despair, unable to move or act. Therefore, if I get to the stage where the whole party has succumbed, there will be no one left to save them. They will remain here, consumed by their past transgressions, until they starve to death. If that happens, it will effectively be a TPK, a total party kill. Okay, time to make the first set of saves for the party. Beric needs to roll a 12 or more. An 18 is a success. Lena needs a 9 or more. A 19. Our cleric remains resilient. Valen also needs a 12. A 16 is a success. Talion needs a 13 or more. A 2, that's a fail. And finally, Eadith needs a 15 or more. An 18. Well, that could have been a lot worse. Now you may have already guessed that the old woman is in fact the mage, Demelza, the keeper of the Eye of Krevik. She has succumbed to the whispers and is close to death. As such, I'm going to have Lena pray for the first level homebrew miracle, Nourish, which when granted, relieves the target of all effects of hunger and thirst, and provides the body with the nutrients, energy and hydration required for one day. Lena will need to roll a 16 or less for her prayer to be answered. A 1! That's a critical success. That means I get to roll on my Great Blessing table, as Lena receives an additional boon for her piety. There are 6 available blessings on my table. Rolling a d6. A 6! Oh, this is good. According to my table, the cleric is physically marked with some sign of the Nine's favour, becoming one of the Blessed. They no longer require their holy symbol to pray for miracles or turn undead, and in addition, they permanently experience the effects of the third level homebrew miracle, Holy Aura. This results in the cleric's piety being made visible, manifesting as an almost imperceivable radiance or halo. The aura increases the cleric's armor class by 2. A secondary effect is that the radiance inspires awe, resulting in a +2 bonus to reaction rolls. Well, it would seem that the gods are watching Lena closely. Let's hope she continues to walk in their favour. Chapter 65, Part 2, Day 62, Morning. Party status. The party status is unchanged. Eadith darted across the gloomy chamber, her shoes tapping on the flagstones in quick succession. The companions followed closely behind, the moonstone's light blooming into the space, catching on raised surfaces and causing the shadows to recede. The young mage dropped to her knees before Demelza, the sudden movement sending a swirl of dust into the light. She flung her arms around the old woman's fragile frame, feeling her protruding bones beneath her now oversized robe.
Demelza! It's me! It's Eadith!
Her voice trembled, thick with urgency. Eadith pulled back from the embrace, though her hands lingered, gripping the old woman's stooped shoulders, as if sheer will could pull her master back to life.
Wake up! Please!
Demelza did not move. Her eyes were dull and distant, clouded like weathered glass. Her lips remained parted in silent breath. Eadith looked back over her shoulder, worry etched deep into her face. Valen and Lena moved forward and knelt also. The cleric reached for Demelza's wrist, her fingers pressing the old woman's cold, mottled skin. Yet beneath it, as faint as the wingbeat of a moth, a slow pulse still stirred.
She lives.
There was relief in Lena's voice.
But I fear she has not taken food or water for many days.
Still touching Demelza's hand, the cleric reached for her holy symbol and began to softly intone a prayer.
Erda, Mother of Earth, I beseech thee, hear my prayer. Feed this woman with thy fertile grace. Nourish her, that she be sate. Sustain her flesh, that she may thrive. Let not her want, nor be deprived. Let thirst be quenched as mountain lake. Be her spring, that she be slaked. Fill her void by thy decree. Be her source, for that I plea. So let it be, now and for eternity.
A moment passed. Then Lena gasped. Her face contorted, and her body bucked and writhed in a mix of agony and ecstasy. She cried out as the colour seemed to drain from her face, while at the same time the old woman's cheeks flushed, and immediately they seemed not as hollow as they were before. Still, she remained otherwise unchanged. Then it was over. Lena released Demelza's hand, teetering and swaying on her knees. For a moment, it seemed that she might faint. Valen instinctively reached out, putting a steadying hand on the cleric's shoulder.
I'm fine.
Lena's voice trembled as she spoke. She offered the mage a weak smile, yet it seemed to Valen that there was something changed about her. About her form was a haze, faint and golden, barely visible, but it was there all the same. The sight meant that the mage could see the auras of those who could weave the craft. But this was different. Something altogether good. Like the very essence of Lena's soul were on display. It was a sharp contrast to this dreadful place. Before he could say anything, a sharp cry split the air. It was Talion. He crumpled to his knees as if struck, clutching both sides of his head. Beric lunged forward, catching the bard before he fully collapsed. But it was too late. Talion's arms went slack, his gaze fixed as though staring into some endless void. Beric shook him hard, desperately trying to rouse him, but to no avail. The warrior looked helplessly at the others. There was no time to talk about what happened to Lena. Their friend was in peril. Valen's mind raced. Whatever had caused Demelza to fall into this state had now claimed Talion as well.
Something has bewitched them,
the mage announced.
The answer must lie here somewhere.
Valen sank once more to one knee beside Demelza. His eyes narrowed, his thoughts searching for something, anything, that might pull her back from whatever curse had laid claim to her and Talion's minds. As he studied the old woman, the faint gleam of metal caught his attention, sitting at the hollow of her throat, half hidden by her hair and the folds of her dusty robe. Intuitively, he knew what it was, but he felt compelled to see it nonetheless. He reached out, fingers parting the fabric. The gesture was careful, reverent, as if he were afraid she might shatter at his touch. Yet his knuckles inadvertently brushed against the curve of her chin.
Amos.
The name drifted up from her lips as the faintest breath, but he heard it all the same. Valen retracted his hand in surprise, like a child caught stealing the honeycakes.
Demelza?
The old woman's clouded eyes stirred, just barely, sliding over his shoulder, their movement almost imperceptible. The rest of her face remained still as stone, her lips only just shaping the next word.
Book.
Just as the Healthstones are connected by their shared malevolence, it made sense to me that the Keepers would be also. And so when Vaylin touched Demelza, she was able to break through the prison around her mind for the briefest of moments. Whether her rather cryptic clue is enough for Vaylin to figure out what he must do remains to be seen. But before we get to that, he, along with the others, will need to make a second save versus spell or succumb to the same fate. Now strictly speaking, perhaps a turn hasn't passed, but I'm going to go with the flow on it. First up, Beric. A 14 is a success. Lena. A 15 is also a success. Our cleric once again remains resilient. Now Vaylin. This is the most critical roll. He needs a 12 or more to succeed. A 13. That was close, but good enough. And finally, Eadith. A 3. That's a failure. Right then, I'm going to make an intelligence check for Vaylin, but given the vagueness of the clue, I will apply a -2 penalty, meaning that the mage needs to roll a 15 or less to succeed. A 14. Well, that's a relief. But it's not quite over. As Vaylin goes to the tome on the lectern, there is a possibility that he will be tempted to read what's on its pages. If he did at any length, this could have some negative implications, so I'm going to make a wisdom check for the mage. I don't yet know exactly what it means if he fails, but I will cross that bridge if it comes to it. Vaylin will need to roll an 11 or less to succeed. A 1. You don't get more definitive than that. Vaylin turned his head, following Demelza's gaze over his shoulder. The moonstone's pale light caught the old woman's pallid face, deepening the shadows under her eyes. In the distraction of finding Demelza, her condition, her torpor, and then Talion befalling the same fate, he had not spared a thought for the lectern at the room's centre, nor the book that waited there like a predator, lying open as if in invitation. He stood now, pivoting towards it. Only then did he see that the lectern was no mere stand of oak, but a nightmarish sculpture, its dark wood carved into writhing scenes of damnation, people tumbling headlong into a sea of flames, others torn apart by clawed and fanged creatures too monstrous to name. The carvings seemed to shift in the light, twisted faces contorting into silent screams. The book upon it was a vast tome, bound in pale, cracked leather that looked disturbingly like stretched skin. Its pages were covered in writing that slithered and churned, ink pooling into sentences before dissolving again, like secrets briefly rising to the surface before sinking back into the murk. At first glimpse, the words whispered of confessions, some pitiful and small, others black and unforgivable. Just then, Eadith's name bubbled up from the ink, followed by phrases that writhed around it like snakes. Vaylin flinched and tore his eyes away, unwilling to bear witness to whatever hidden shame lay in the other mage's heart. An anguished cry suddenly broke the silence. Vaylin spun around to see Eadith clutching her ears, just as Talion had a few minutes earlier. This time, it was Lena who caught the apprentice before she fell, but she too was powerless to prevent Eadith from falling into the same stupor.
We must do something.
The cleric's voice trembled with desperation. Beric scrambled to his feet, callous cledder gleaming in his hand. His eyes darted across the chamber, impotently searching for some unseen enemy that he could strike.
You will find no foe to fight, Beric.
Vaylin's voice was low and grim, as the answer to the riddle crystallized in his mind.
The enemies they face,
he gestured to Demelza, Eadith and Talion,
are themselves.
He turned back to the tome. Simply closing the book might break the spell, but he had to be sure. Extending his hand towards it, fingers splayed, he spoke aloud an incantation.
Elven Odan, Ruin Aikwisho.
A sudden flash of light seared from the lectern as the book erupted into flame. Dry parchment curled and blackened instantly as the fire took hold. All around, the air quaked with an anguished, inhuman scream, an echo of the malevolence which delighted in the fallibility of humankind, until it faded into silence as the tome crumbled to ash. Eadith and Talion stirred first, their limbs trembling as if waking from some terrible nightmare. Then Demelza too began to move, the colour returning to her eyes. Slowly, with effort, she lifted her head to gaze at Valen. Her pale blue eyes regarded him with confusion, then flickered with hesitant recognition.
I know you.
So, the companions have finally found Demelza, and indeed, they have saved her from death. Demelza is an 11th level mage, and ordinarily an extremely powerful character. However, the assault on her mind and the starvation she has experienced has left her severely weakened. When the companions found her, Demelza's constitution had fallen to 2 as a result of the starvation. And while not strictly part of the miracle's effects, I'm going to rule that Lena praying for Nourish has restored a further 2 points, taking Demelza's constitution to 4 out of a maximum of 12. In fact, the only thing which kept her alive was the Eye of Krevik, which among its powers bestows a +2 constitution bonus. Usually, this would be a +4, but the amulet in which it is encased is designed to limit the Hellstone's power, the rest of which are insidious to say the least. I will rule that she will regain 1 point of constitution per day if she receives sufficient food and water, either naturally or by supernatural means. In the meantime, this stat loss results in a temporary loss of 2 hit points per level, leaving Demelza with 11 rather than her usual 28 hit points. Not only that, but Demelza currently has no spells memorized. She does, however, have some magic items and scrolls, not to mention the Eye of Krevik. Perhaps more importantly, I need to establish what Demelza knows about Penmelkine and how she intends to destroy the Hellstone in her keeping. Time to ask the Oracle. Firstly, does Demelza know who built Penmelkine and for what purpose? A 5. That's a straight yes. Okay, so does she know how to destroy the Eye of Krevik? A 6. That's a yes and. And finally, does Demelza know what lies directly beyond the iron-bound door? A 2. That's a straight no. Okay then. Chapter 65, Part 3, Day 62, Late Morning. Party status. The party status is unchanged, except that Lena has used one of her first level miracles, and Valen has cast Ignite. Eadith flung her arms around Demelza's neck, clinging as though afraid her master might disappear at any moment. She buried her face against the older woman's neck, shoulders trembling with quiet, broken sobs. The scent of ash and old parchment still clung to her clothes. Demelza raised a thin, age-spotted hand, her touch gentle as she stroked and patted her apprentice's arm in a slow, steady rhythm.
There, dear. All is well. All is well.
She murmured the words like a charm, her voice hushed and warm. Eadith drew back, wiping away the tears which glistened on her cheeks.
I'm sorry, Master. I should never have tried to take the amulet.
Her voice was thick with emotion.
No.
The old woman countered softly yet firmly, her eyes kind.
The fault was mine. I should never have brought you here.
She admitted, and for an instant a shadow flickered across her features like storm clouds crossing the sun.
I knew that this place would amplify the power of the eye. Forgive me.
Eadith simply nodded and reached out, fingers trembling to clasp Demelza's hand in her own. Valen cleared his throat. The sound was low, but enough to fracture the moment. Demelza lifted her gaze to meet the mage's, her expression shifting as though she were waking from a dream.
You must be Valen.
She said it almost serenely, yet there was a faint weight in her tone.
Yes,
The mage replied, his brow creasing with curiosity.
but how?
Demelza smiled with a fragile warmth, her voice tinged with sadness.
Amos told me much about you.
She explained, then added,
He loved you like a son.
Valen swallowed hard, the words striking something deep.
I could feel it, you know, when he passed across the veil.
Her eyes intensified, and it felt to Valen as if the chamber around him faded away. He was not sure whether Demelza spoke aloud, or if her voice had slipped into his mind.
And now you
She stressed the word.
are the keeper of the Eye of Mordgrim.
The old mage paused, holding his gaze, the weight of the truth settling between them. Then Demelza's expression changed to something softer, and Valen felt the library slide back into focus. The mage tried to clear his thoughts. There were so many questions, but their task pressed heavier than his curiosity.
You know that there are those who seek to reunite the Hellstones and tear this land asunder.
Demelza nodded slowly, yet her face was unreadable.
And we know you came here to destroy the Hellstone in your keeping.
Valen's tone was respectful, careful, each word measured.
But how will you succeed where Amos could not?
The old woman's lips curled into a wry, almost wistful smile, and she exhaled a long, slow breath.
It is simple.
Her voice was steady, unwavering.
I shall cast the Eye of Krevik into the rift.
Thank you for listening to Legend of the Bones. I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you like what you've heard, then please consider rating and reviewing the show in your podcatcher of choice. Not only do I love seeing the feedback, but it really does help the show reach new listeners. As always, where would I be without my amazing cast of voice talent? A newcomer to the show, playing the role of Demelza, is Ros Williams, who is in fact my mum. Yes, you heard that correctly. Apart from being an all-round amazing mother, Ros is a member of her local amateur dramatic society and has also done work as an extra on television. Returning to the show, playing the role of Eadith, is Chloe Elliott. Chloe is an actor, singer, composer and content creator, as well as being a cast member of A Deck of Many Aces, an actual play D&D podcast. My sincere thanks to both my mum and Chloe, whose links I'll put in the show notes. You could also help by liking or reposting new episode announcements, or by recommending the show online or to a friend. You really can't beat the power of word of mouth. Finally, I'd love to know what you think of the show, and I do respond to every message I receive. So with that in mind, you can contact me on X at LegendBones, Blue Sky at LegendBones, Mastodon at legendbones, at ttrpg-hangout.social, Instagram at legendofthebones, email at legendofthebones@gmail.com, or go to legendofthebones.blogspot.com for show notes, house rules, character profiles, art, maps and more. Join me next time to find out what awaits our adventurers as the bones decide their fate. None shall escape the destiny of Bone.
Hey everyone, Star Master Jeff here, reporting in for the Dark Star Adventurecast, a sci-fi actual play where every choice matters, every danger is real, and survival is never guaranteed. Follow the crew of the Scapegoat as they navigate heists, gang wars, and cosmic threats, all while keeping their ship in the sky and outrunning the demons of their past. Season 1 kicks off with an investigation that spirals into deadly secrets, unexpected twists, and problems you can't fix without paying a price. Because every choice has consequences. Every jump through the stars could be your last, and nothing is ever as it seems. Lean, cinematic, and immersive, each episode tells a story enhanced with music, sound effects, and characters you'll remember long after the jump. So if you want gritty starships, high-stakes storytelling, and a crew that just won't quit, tune in to the Dark Star Adventurecast. New episodes every other Tuesday, and keep chasing that signal.